it's here. Can't you feel it? This whole room, this everything is in color, and I can feel the air. I can see it. I can see all the molecules. I'm part of it. Can't you see it?
Let's talk about drugs. The 50s was a crazy time for them. Not only was it television's golden age or the rise of rock and roll, but psychedelics were legal. Just like that clip we heard earlier from an LSD study done in the 50s, psychedelics make you feel all sorts of crazy different things. The term psychedelics was even coined in Saskatchewan by psychiatrist Humphrey Osmond. But because of the war on drugs and other politics, all research was stopped and possession of these drugs were banned. I sat down with Shane, a professor at Mount Royal University, to talk more about this.
In between Albert Hofmann discovering the effects and the psychiatric research that was happening in that field, LSD kind of leaked out of the lab and into the living rooms of ordinary Americans and Canadians and Westerners. And that kind of uncontrolled use made people a little anxious, especially politicians and the kind of right-thinking bishops and presidents and that type of stuff. So it was Richard Nixon who declared war on drugs in 1971. It was a way, I think, of kind of criminalizing some of his political opponents. He discovered that the hippie generation tended to use drugs like marijuana and LSD, and so he renewed this anti-drug sentiment and declared war on drugs. The evolution of the labels that the substances had actually reflects the kind of cultural values and assumptions of each era. So that when LSD first came on the scene, it was called a psychotomimetic. And so that they thought that if you gave somebody LSD, it would produce a model psychosis. It could make somebody crazy. Now, psychiatrists were actually taking LSD to try to become empathetic with their patients, because if they could understand the kind of consciousness of their patients with schizophrenia or long-term psychosis, then they could tailor their treatments, sometimes even design the mental health facilities differently, because they would have an understanding of the consciousness of the people that they were treating. So from psychotomimetic, the researchers started to understand that that was not what the drugs were actually doing, that they were producing almost religious experiences, kind of aesthetic experiences. The people, their participants, were saying it was the most beautiful experience they'd ever had, and they felt free and liberated. And so they were like, well, this is not crazy. They're not crazy. And so then they came up with the term psychedelic. Psyche means mind or soul, and delic means revealing or manifesting. So right there in that first shift from this will make you crazy to this will manifest your mind or your soul, it shows a deepening and an expansion of the understanding of the effects of the drugs.
Since the beginning of time, people have been obsessed with healing, and some say that's what psychedelics do. Alberta became the first Canadian province to regulate the use of psychedelics like ketamine, MDMA, and psilocybin. This allowed for psychedelic-assisted therapy. But this new wave of therapy has deep historical roots. Peyote has been used for centuries by Indigenous tribes for spiritual guiding and healing rituals. And me, I am no stranger to the occasional trip, but I wanted to know what other people thought about this, so I took it to the streets.
I did it when I was younger, and as I got older, and I realized that when you take certain things from Mother Earth, you can actually raise your personal frequency to the point where you ascend dimensions. And so I would fast for 24 hours, and then I would eat them, and then stay stationary and control the energy that's moving. Because when you take mushrooms, the energy actually moves, right?
Because it makes you sick. And if your brain is scrambled, you can't think properly. And that's why I avoid it all.
So no one actually wants to talk to me because I think no one really wants to talk about their experience doing drugs. I think it's a really personal experience. But I did run into this guy, and he offered me some really great advice.
I started the summer going into grade 8, which I would not recommend. My own journey was my own, but yeah, it's taken me to a great many places. It's been incredibly important for my growth and development, as well as my direction in life going forward.
And have you had any kind of cathartic experiences or any life-changing moments that happened when you were experiencing it?
Of course, yeah. My resume, so to speak, is pretty diverse, from ayahuasca to psilocybin, LSD, things like that. They all have their own unique experiences that are really wrapped up in what you're looking for, moments. Sometimes you have no idea what to expect, and sometimes it's exactly what you need. But life-changing, definitely. From pulling me out of a really crippling depression in my early age to getting me over some pretty big life traumas, stuck spots. It's hard to talk about any one particular thing because it really is so dependent on where you're at in each moment.